Q Sung walked through the long halls of the Galactic Council with his head held high. His dark suit fitted perfectly, and his eyes showed the confidence of a man who believed in his people. He was going to change everything today. The Council had called for the final hearing, and this was Earth's moment to join the great family of advanced civilizations. The chamber was massive, walls of pure crystal stretched up into darkness, and they seemed to glow with an inner light. Representatives from 17 different civilizations sat in circles above him. Some had bodies made of metal. Some were pure energy inside glass containers. Others looked like strange combinations of animal and machine. Q Sung felt small, but he did not show it. The Zarath sat in the highest seat. They looked like mountains of dark stone with eyes that burned like fire. Next to them were the Valorians, beings that floated without moving, their bodies looking like liquid silver frozen in time. The Threnodi had heads shaped like pyramids and arms that bent in too many places. Each species watched him with expressions that ranged from curious to cold. Q Sung began to speak. His voice was steady and clear. He talked about human history, about how his people had started in caves and darkness, knowing nothing about the universe. He spoke of how humans had built cities that touched the sky. He described art so beautiful that it made people cry. He told them about music that could make the heart sing. He explained how humans loved, how they created, how they dreamed of reaching the stars. He showed them pictures of Earth's great works. The paintings of masters, the buildings that seemed impossible to create, the music written by composers whose names would live forever. He talked about how humans helped each other, how they cared for the sick and the weak, how they protected their children and their land. Then he spoke about humanity's gift for science. He explained how humans had gone from wheels to spaceships in just a few thousand years. He talked about how they understood physics and mathematics, how they had begun to cure diseases, how they learned to use atomic power, how they were beginning to understand the very secrets of life itself. Humanity, Q Sung said, his voice growing stronger, is ready to join your great alliance. We do not come to take. We come to give. We come to be part of something greater than ourselves. We come to learn from you and to teach you what we have learned. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then the Zarath began to laugh. It was a sound like rocks rolling down a mountain. The Valorians soon joined in, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Then the Threnodi and others. Soon the whole chamber was filled with laughter. Q Sung's heart began to beat faster. This was not the response he had expected. The council leader stood up. This being was different from all the others. It had no body that Q Sung could see. It was like looking at pure energy shaped into form, moving and changing, but always there. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Human, the council leader said, and the word felt heavy and final. Your presentation was interesting. We can see that your species has worked hard. You have achieved much for a young race. But let us be clear about what you are. You are children playing with toys you do not understand. You think your little songs and buildings mean something in a universe this vast. They do not. The council leader raised something like a hand. You will never be like us. You lack the power we possess. You lack the knowledge we have gathered over millions of years. You lack the discipline, the strength, the advanced nature that true civilization requires. Your emotions make you weak. Your mortality makes you desperate. Your limited lifespans make you unable to truly understand the great work of building a galactic empire. Q Sung tried to speak, but the council leader continued. Therefore, the council votes, and we vote unanimously. Humanity is denied entry into the Galactic Alliance. You are not ready. You will not be ready for thousands of years, if ever. Perhaps it is best that you remain on your small world, tending to your small matters, and leave the real work to those who are truly capable. The council leader paused. Then it spoke words that would change everything. Humans are ineffectual, insignificant, worthless. The word hung in the air like poison gas. Worthless. The council laughed again, but Q Sung barely heard it. His mind was spinning. He wanted to argue, to fight, to explain. But what could he say? The decision was made. The judgment was given. He walked out of the chamber without looking back. Behind him, the laughter continued. Outside, Commander Teo was waiting. She had watched everything on a screen. When she saw Q Sung's face, she knew. No words were needed. They traveled back to Earth in silence. The journey took weeks, and Q Sung spent every hour thinking about the council leader's words. Worthless. Was it true? Had he wasted his life trying to do something impossible? Had humanity been foolish to believe it could ever stand among the great civilizations of the galaxy? When they arrived at Earth, the sun was rising over Seoul. The city looked beautiful, with lights still glowing in the darkness before dawn. People were beginning to wake up, going about their normal lives, not knowing that their hope for the future had just been crushed. Q Sung went to his apartment alone. He did not turn on the lights. He sat in the darkness and thought about being worthless. He thought about the council's judgment. He thought about how the greatest powers in the galaxy had looked at humanity and found nothing of value. What he did not know was that something very old was also thinking about him. Something that had been sleeping for millions of years deep beneath the earth was beginning to feel a pain it had not felt in ages, and that pain was growing. It was building like a storm that had been waiting for the right moment to finally break. The ancient thing stirred in its sleep. It felt the words spoken in the distant chamber. It felt the insult to the species it had created so long ago. And for the first time in 10 million years, the ancient divinity began to wake. Mi-sun was deep in her work when the machines started to scream. Her laboratory was filled with computers and sensors and devices that measured things humans could barely understand. She worked on quantum physics, on the very smallest pieces of reality, on the energy that held the universe together. It was 3 in the morning, and she was alone in the research center in Seoul. The screens began to flash red, every screen at once. The seismic monitors, which measured movements in the earth, were going crazy. The readings were climbing higher and higher, showing waves of energy moving through the ground. But there was something wrong. These readings did not match any earthquake pattern that Mi-sun had ever seen. The waves were too regular, too organized, too purposeful. She ran to the window and looked out at the city. Nothing seemed wrong. No buildings were shaking. No lights were flashing. The streets were still. But her instrument said something massive was happening beneath the city, beneath the entire country, perhaps beneath the entire world. Mi-sun called her colleague Da-yoon. He arrived 20 minutes later, his hair still messy from sleep, his eyes confused and worried. Da-yoon was an astrophysicist, which meant he looked at the sky and studied the stars. When Mi-sun showed him the data, his face went white. "This is not from Earth," Da-yoon said slowly. "Look at these patterns. This is not natural. This is something else. Something is moving. Something is waking up." Before Mi-sun could answer, her phone rang. Then Da-yoon's phone rang. Then Mi-sun's computer began to receive emergency messages. Observatories all over the world were reporting the same thing. Aurora lights were appearing where they should not appear. The atmosphere was showing strange energy patterns. Satellites were detecting radiation levels that should have caused major damage, but somehow did not. Something was happening on a global scale. They rushed outside to see. The sky above Seoul was dancing with colors that had no name. Greens and purples and blues that swirled and moved like they were alive. The northern lights, the aurora, should only appear near the poles of the world. But here, in Korea, in the middle of the night, the sky was alive with light. People came out of their homes. They stood in the streets, pointing and calling to each other. No one was scared yet. The lights were too beautiful to be frightening, but they were strange. They were impossible. And as Mi-sun and Da-yun watched, they felt something else. A vibration, a frequency that seemed to move through their bones. It did not hurt, but they could feel it. All around them, other people began to shiver. Dogs and cats hid in their homes. Birds stopped singing. At the same moment, in other parts of the world, others were watching. In America, in Europe, in Africa, in every country, people saw the same lights. Scientists around the world were calling each other, trying to understand. Governments were meeting. The United Nations was gathering. Everyone was asking the same question. What was happening? Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, something was moving. At a depth where the pressure could crush a human body in seconds, in a place where the darkness was absolute, something ancient was opening its eyes. Structures that had been hidden for millions of years were beginning to glow. These were not natural caves or underwater mountains. These were buildings, or something like buildings. Their walls seemed to be made of metal and crystal, and something else that did not match any material that scientists knew about. The structures had been built by humans, but not by modern humans. These buildings had been made long ago, tens of thousands of years ago, when the oldest human civilizations were still living in caves. How they had been built, no one could explain. Who had built them, no one could say. They had always been there, hidden, waiting. And inside these ancient structures, something that had been sleeping for 10 million years was waking up. The energy waves that Mi-sun had measured were like a heartbeat getting stronger. The being was waking slowly, carefully, like something that had been asleep for a very long time. Its mind was ancient. It had seen species rise and fall. It had watched galaxies be born. It had been sleeping because it had given humanity freedom to grow and develop on their own. It had not wanted to interfere. It had believed that humanity would find their own path to greatness. But something had changed. The pain of the insult, the words of the council leader calling humanity worthless, had cut through the being's sleep like a sharp blade. Something that the being had created, something that the being had watched with love for millions of years, had been judged and found lacking. And the being did not accept this judgment. The structures beneath the ocean began to rise. Very slowly, very carefully, they moved upward through the water. Thousands of meters of stone and soil and water shifted to make room. The movement was so slow that human instruments could barely detect it. But it was happening. Something massive was coming to the surface. Mi-sun felt it first. She was standing in her laboratory when a feeling passed through her. It was not pain. It was not fear. It was like someone was touching her mind gently, trying to communicate. For just a moment she felt it. An ancient presence, older than mountains, older than oceans, a being that had seen the birth of humanity and had never stopped watching. Then the moment passed. The feeling faded. Mi-sun was left standing in her laboratory, shaking. Da-un came running to find her. He had felt something too, and he was not alone. All over the world, people were beginning to report the same thing. A feeling of ancient power. A presence that seemed to say without words that something was watching. Something was aware. Something that had been waiting was finally beginning to act. By dawn, the aurora lights had faded. The vibrations had stopped. The seismic readings had returned to normal. But the world was changed. Everyone knew that something had happened. Something had begun, and no one knew if what was coming would be good or bad. All they knew was that it was vast, and it was old, and it was connected to humanity itself in some way that no one could understand. The age of ignorance was ending. The age of awakening had begun. The message came to Q-sung without any medium. It was not a phone call. It was not a letter. It was not an email or a broadcast message sent to all of humanity. It came directly to his mind, a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, ancient and vast and full of purpose. "Come to the Pacific," the voice said. "Bring those who feel the calling. Bring those who have felt my presence. Come where the waters part. Come where the old structures rise. Come and know the truth of what you are." Q-Sung did not question it. He simply knew he had to obey. He contacted Mi-sun and Da-yun. They confirmed that they had heard the same message. They contacted others around the world, people who had felt the strange presence during the night of the aurora lights. Within hours, a gathering began to form. A pilot named Jin Ho, who had flown military aircraft and felt the ancient power call to him. A doctor named Seiri, who had spent her life healing people and whose compassion had drawn the attention of the old being. An artist named Hai-il, whose creations expressed beauty in ways that touched the human soul. A warrior named Minho, who had dedicated himself to protecting others. A mathematician named Yun-ji, whose mind could perceive patterns in the universe. They came from every nation. They came from every walk of life. But they all shared one thing. They had felt the calling. They knew that something was drawing them together for a purpose they did not yet understand. A plane was prepared. It carried these chosen humans across the vast Pacific Ocean. Below them, the water seemed different. The color was changing. The currents were moving in strange patterns, and as they flew lower, they saw it. Rising from the depths of the ocean, water falling away like a curtain, was a structure that did not belong to the modern world. It was massive, impossibly massive. The base was wider than a city, and it rose up into the sky like a mountain that someone had carved and shaped with intention. Its walls seemed to be made of material that was neither stone nor metal, but something that combined the best qualities of both. The structure glowed with a soft inner light that came from within the material itself. It was ancient beyond measure, but it looked new. It was covered with symbols and patterns that no human language could quite explain. The pilot brought the plane down safely on a platform that extended from the side of the structure. Q-Sung and the others stepped out onto solid ground, though the platform itself seemed to float on the water without sinking. Around them, more people were arriving. Planes from other countries. Ships that had turned around and headed toward this location. Hundreds of humans from all corners of the world, all answering the same call. They were led into the structure by invisible forces. There were no walls blocking them, no guards controlling their path, but they all knew which way to go. It was as if the structure itself was guiding them, pulling them gently in the right direction. The interior of the building defied understanding. Spaces that looked small from the outside were vast and endless inside. Ceilings stretched up into mist. Walls showed moving images of things that might have been memories or might have been visions of the future. In the center of it all was a chamber so enormous that 1,000 people could stand in it and still feel alone. And in the center of that chamber was the presence. It was not a body. It was not a being that had shape or form in any way that humans could normally perceive. It was consciousness made visible. It was intelligence and power and ancient purpose given form through some technology that was so advanced it seemed like magic. The presence filled the entire chamber and somehow also seemed infinite, extending beyond the walls and the structure and the ocean itself. Mi-sun spoke first, though the words did not come from her mouth. They came directly from her mind, projected by the presence itself. "Welcome," she said, but it was not her voice. It was the voice of the being. "I am Daehan. I have slept for a long time. I have watched you grow. I have seen you climb from the caves and the darkness into the light of understanding. I have not interfered because I believed you should find your own way. But now I must speak." The presence showed them things. Images flooded into their minds. They saw the ancient past, when Daihan had first come to Earth millions of years ago. They saw how the being had worked with the first humans, guiding their development, helping them grow. They saw how Daihan had left them behind, retreated from the world, and let humanity walk their own path. They saw how humans had suffered and learned and eventually begun to reach toward the stars. And then they saw the Galactic Council. They saw the hearing. They felt the dismissal, the judgment, the single word that had cut so deep. They called you worthless, Daihan said, and there was pain in the words, real pain. They looked at you and saw only inferiority. They did not see your art, your music, your literature, your dreams. They did not see how you love, how you sacrifice for each other, how you continue forward even when hope seems lost. They did not see that these things, these human things, are the greatest treasures in this universe. The presence pulsed with ancient power and anger and love. You are not worthless. You have never been worthless. You were engineered by me, created by me, watched over by me. You carry in your very DNA a spark of my divine nature. You have the ability to do things that those arrogant aliens have forgotten how to do. You have creativity and intuition and the capacity to dream. You have the power to change, to grow, to become something greater than you are. Daihan's presence filled them with warmth and purpose and determination. They said you were insignificant. They said you were too young, too weak, too limited. But they made a mistake. They insulted not just a species. They insulted the Ancient One who created that species. They challenged the being who had nurtured humanity for eons. And now they will learn what it means to wake the divinity they were so quick to dismiss. The presence seemed to settle, becoming calmer, more focused. You have been chosen because you have felt my presence. You have answered the call. And now, together, we will show the galaxy what humanity truly is. We will transform you. We will unlock the abilities that sleep in your DNA. We will provide you with knowledge and tools that will make you the equal of any civilization in this galaxy. And then, the Council will understand that they have made the greatest mistake of their existence. One by one, Q Sung and the others felt the presence touch their minds. It was not painful. It was like waking from a long sleep and remembering who you truly were. They could feel the ancient code in their cells activating. They could sense power building within them. They were changing. They were becoming something more than they had been before, and they were ready to show the galaxy what humanity could do. Commander Teo stood in the war room of the Global Defense Command in Seoul. Maps covered the walls. Screens showed data streaming in from monitoring stations around the world. It had been 3 days since the revelation in the Pacific. 3 days since humanity had learned the truth about themselves. 3 days since they understood that an ancient divine being had created them and was now returning to guide them toward a destiny they had never imagined. Teo was a soldier. Her entire life had been dedicated to protecting humanity. Now she had been given a new responsibility. Daihan had chosen her to prepare Earth's defenses and to organize humanity's transformation. It was the greatest challenge she had ever faced. The first step, Daihan had explained, is to teach your people what they truly are. Not all humans can feel my presence or understand immediately, but all humans carry the ancient code in their cells. All humans have the potential for greatness. You must help them awaken. Teo had begun by gathering the world's greatest minds. Scientists, engineers, philosophers, artists, and leaders from every nation came together. They were all told the truth. Some believed immediately, some needed proof. Daihan provided that proof. In laboratories around the world, humans began to demonstrate abilities that should have been impossible. Mi-sun, working with Daihan's knowledge, could manipulate quantum fields with her mind, making particles dance according to her will. Da-un could sense energy patterns in the universe that no telescope could detect. Hyil could create art that somehow improved the health and joy of anyone who viewed it. Minho could move with speed and strength that no human athlete could match. Yunji could perceive mathematical truths about the structure of reality that made advanced physics look like basic arithmetic. But these were just the beginning. Daihan began to share knowledge that had been hidden in ancient human DNA for millions of years. Knowledge about weapon systems that could harness the power of stars. Information about shields that could be powered by human will itself. Understanding of how to bend space and time in controlled ways. Technology that merged biology and mechanics into perfect harmony. A team of engineers led by a brilliant scientist named Ji Woo began the work of building. Deep beneath the mountains of Korea, in facilities that had been hidden for thousands of years, they found the ancient technology left behind by Daihan. Massive structures, machines of impossible design, ships that were built before recorded history but were more advanced than anything humanity had created. These ancient artifacts began to be restored, but they were not simply repaired in their original form. The knowledge that Daihan shared, combined with the creativity and intuition of human engineers, created something new. Human ancient hybrid technology that was far superior to either alone. Spaceships that could fold space itself to travel vast distances in moments. Weapons that could redirect the energy of the sun to strike at distant targets. Communication systems that could connect minds across thousands of light years. The transformation happened in secret. The rest of the world did not know. Governments cooperated in ways they never had before. Old enemies became allies. Resources flowed to the secret project. Every nation contributed their best minds and their best workers. Teo worked ceaselessly. She did not sleep. She did not rest. The power that Daihan had awakened in her allowed her body to function without rest for weeks at a time. She coordinated with military leaders worldwide. She organized the building of defensive stations. She prepared humanity not for conquest, but for the moment when they would need to face the galaxy and prove what they truly were. Months passed. The work continued. And then something remarkable happened. Humans everywhere began to change. It was slow at first. A child in Brazil suddenly displayed the ability to heal wounds with a touch. A musician in Norway found that his music could somehow resonate with the quantum field, affecting probability itself. A teacher in Kenya discovered that she could make knowledge flow directly from her mind into her students' understanding. The ancient code was awakening in all of humanity. Not equally, not in the same way, but it was there. Every human had been engineered by Daihan with potential dormant within their cells. As the awareness grew, as more humans began to understand their true nature, the potential began to activate. Teo realized something crucial. This was not a transformation of a small group. This was the evolution of an entire species. Every human child being born now was being born with more activated potential than their parents. The transformation was accelerating. Daihan began to teach more directly. The ancient being would speak to humanity through Misun and other gifted speakers. The message was always the same. You are more than you know. You are stronger than your enemies believe. You have been given gifts that most species never receive. You must learn to use them wisely. You must not become what the Council fears. You must become something better than them. You must become what you were always meant to be. 5 years passed. The transformation of Earth was complete. Humanity was no longer the weak species that the Council had dismissed. They were something else entirely. The ancient cities that had been hidden for millions of years were now thriving centers of learning and power. New cities rose from the oceans and mountains, built with technology that made them part of the natural world rather than dominators of it. Agriculture produced food for billions using methods that were almost miraculous. Medicine had advanced so far that disease was becoming memory. And the weapons, the terrible, beautiful weapons. Ships that could destroy planets hung in the skies, but they were never used because they did not need to be. The mere fact of their existence was a statement. The mere knowledge that humans possessed them was enough. Teo stood with Q-Sung and Mi-sun and Da-Yun and all the others who had been chosen. They looked at their world and saw what it had become, paradise and fortress in one. A place of beauty and power. A home that was ready to take its place among the stars. They will not know what happened, Q-Sung said. The galaxy will look at Earth and see nothing but a young world. They will not understand what we have become. Not yet, Teo replied, but they will. When the time is right, they will learn, and they will understand that they made the greatest mistake of their existence. Daehan's presence was everywhere now, not controlling but guiding, not commanding but suggesting. The ancient being had fully awakened, and through humanity, the divinity was beginning to make itself known to the universe. The age of hiding was over. The age of revelation was beginning, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. 500 years had passed since the day Q-Sung walked out of the Galactic Council chamber, rejected and humiliated. The universe had continued on its way, largely unaware that a fundamental change was occurring in a small corner of space near a yellow star called the Sun. Humanity had not remained hidden forever, but they had remained silent. They built their civilization in shadow, growing stronger, preparing, waiting for the right moment to reveal what they had become. The Galactic Council occasionally heard rumors of advanced human activity, but they dismissed the reports as exaggeration or propaganda. A young species could not possibly have advanced so far. It was impossible. It was illogical. The Council was confident in their judgment. But in the depths of space, far from the main trade routes and the centers of galactic power, humanity had flourished. Hundreds of human colonies spread across 100 star systems. Each one was a jewel of advanced civilization. The cities floated in space and hung on worlds of impossible beauty. Art and science and music flourished in ways that no civilization in the galaxy had ever experienced. The human spirit, once dismissed as worthless, had been given the tools of divinity, and the results were breathtaking. Mi-sun was 453 years old. Daehan had given the chosen ones extended life, allowing them to guide humanity across the centuries. She stood on a platform of shimmering crystal that orbited a binary star system, and she looked out at the wonders that her people had created. Below her, a fleet of human ships hung in perfect formation. Not warships, not aggressive vessels, but ships of exploration and discovery, ready to reveal to the galaxy what humanity had become. Da-Yun was beside her, his eyes still sharp despite the centuries he had lived. He had spent his entire extended life studying the stars and the energy that flowed through the universe. He had discovered things about the cosmos that even the oldest alien civilizations did not know. In his hands, he held data about the structures and secrets of reality itself. Q-Sung was there as well, aged but still straight-backed, his mind as sharp as it had been when he was young. He had spent 5 centuries learning how to lead, how to guide, how to inspire. He had become something more than a diplomat. He had become a philosopher and a guide for his entire species. And then there was Commander Teo. Time had changed her body, but it had not weakened her. She was still the warrior, still the protector, but now she protected an entire species. She had spent 500 years preparing for this moment, knowing that it would come, knowing that the time of silence would eventually end. They received the signal at the same moment, a message from the Galactic Council. The Council wanted to know about human activity in the outer regions of space. They wanted an explanation for the unusual energy readings. They wanted to confirm that humans were still the weak, insignificant species they had deemed them to be. The Council wanted me, son, to appear before them for a final assessment. This was the moment that 500 years of preparation had been leading toward. The journey to the Council chamber took only hours in a human ship. Space folded before them, allowing them to travel distances that should have taken years in mere minutes. When they arrived at the Council's orbital station, every sensor that the ancient civilizations possessed went wild. They detected power levels that should not have been possible. They detected weapons systems that defied their understanding. They detected a ship that was moving through their most carefully guarded space without asking permission and without any of them being able to stop it. Mi-sun stepped out of the ship. Her appearance was calm and composed. Her eyes held a luminescence that had not been there 500 years ago, a faint glow that suggested power beyond imagination dwelling within her human form. Behind her came Da-un and Q-sung and Tayo and dozens of other humans, all showing that same faint inner glow, all moving with a certainty that made the ancient council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. The council leader was not the same being that had spoken 500 years ago. That entity had faded from power as the ages progressed. But the new council leader was just as arrogant, just as confident in the superiority of the ancient civilizations. "Human," the council leader said, its voice dripping with condescension. "You have traveled far. But you should not have come here without permission. You should have asked. You should have shown proper respect to your betters." Mi-sun smiled. It was not a mean smile. It was not an angry smile. It was the smile of someone who finally understood something that had been hidden from them for their entire existence. "We came," Mi-sun said, her voice carrying the harmonic resonance of Daehan himself, "because we no longer accept your judgment. We came to tell you that the assessment you made 500 years ago was wrong. We came to tell you that humanity is not worthless. We came to tell you that the ancient divinity that created us has awakened. And we are no longer the young, weak species you dismissed so easily." She raised her hand, and space itself seemed to bend around the Council's station. The most advanced shields that the galactic powers possessed flickered. The most powerful weapon systems found themselves powerless. Every advantage that the Council had built their dominion upon suddenly seemed fragile and temporary. "We do not come to conquer," Da-un said, stepping forward. "We do not come to destroy. We come to correct. We come to teach you what you failed to learn. We come to show you that worth is not measured by age or power or dominion. Worth is measured by what you create, by who you protect, by how you grow and change and love." Q-sung looked directly at the council leader. "For 500 years we have built, we have learned, we have evolved, and we have waited. We have waited for you to admit that you were wrong. We have waited for you to recognize what humanity truly is. But your silence told us all we needed to know. Your dismissal of our early reports confirmed that you have not changed. Therefore," Tayo said, her voice sharp as a blade, "we are restructuring the Galactic Council. We are removing those who judge by appearance rather than by reality. We are installing a system where all species are valued equally. We are ending the age of ancient dominion and beginning the age of unity and mutual respect." The council members tried to resist. They activated their weapons. They sent their fleets. But everything they did was met by something they did not understand, something that moved faster than their technologies could follow, something that bent their own power back against them. Within hours, the Galactic Council was no more. In its place stood something new, a unified government where humans held seats of power alongside the other civilizations. The ancient beings that had ruled for millions of years found themselves taking advice from a species that was only recently awakened. and they had no choice but to accept it, because the power that backed the new order was absolute. Mi-sun looked out at the reformed assembly. "We are humanity," she announced to the entire galaxy, her words transmitted to every world, every station, every outpost. "We were called worthless. We were dismissed as insignificant. We were told we could never stand with the great civilizations of the cosmos. But we chose to prove you wrong. We chose to awaken what slept within us. And now we choose a future where no species is judged as worthless, where every conscious being has value, where the universe itself recognizes that greatness comes not from how long you have lived, but from what you choose to become." The age of humanity had begun, not through arrogance or conquest, but through the simple act of becoming everything that they were always meant to be, and the galaxy would never be the same.